You've been praying. You've been fasting. You've been waiting. And it feels like heaven is silent. Doors you were sure would open have slammed in your face. The opportunities you thought were divine appointments have disappeared like mist in the morning. But what if I told you that the denial was not a rejection, but a redirection? What if the closed door was actually God's way of protecting you from something beneath your understanding? This message is not for everyone. It's for the one who's weary, the one who's on the edge, the one who's asking, God, where are you? If that's you, don't move. Don't scroll. Because something bigger than your prayer is on the horizon, and your spirit knows it. There is a dimension of faith that only reveals itself when the answer is no. Most people equate God's goodness with His willingness to give them what they want when they want it. But spiritual maturity begins where our desires end and His wisdom begins. The man or woman who learns to trust God when the door stays shut is the one who walks in divine power. Because God is not bound by your expectations. He's not limited by your timeline. He's not manipulated by your emotions. He responds to faith. And faith does not always lead you into comfort. It leads you into alignment. You must understand that every door is not your door. Just because it looks good doesn't mean it's God. And just because you want it doesn't mean you're ready for it. In the economy of heaven, timing is a currency. And God will not invest a blessing into a vessel that is not yet prepared to carry it. Sometimes the delay is not denial, it's development, it's divine preparation. It's heaven rearranging what you thought you needed so that you don't miss what He actually ordained. Look back at your life. Reflect on the times you were broken because something didn't happen the way you hoped. You cried, you doubted, you questioned your worth. But with time, clarity came. And what once felt like heartbreak turned out to be one of the greatest rescues of your life. That's how God moves. He frustrates your plan to fulfill His purpose. And sometimes His silence is not absence, it's strategy. While you're crying over what didn't happen, God is quietly constructing something that exceeds the very thing you were begging for. There was a woman in the Bible, Hannah, who cried out bitterly for a child. Year after year, her womb remained closed. People mocked her. Even her husband didn't understand her grief. But what looked like barrenness was really a setup for divine timing. Because when her womb finally opened, it birthed a prophet, not just a son, a voice for a generation. God delayed her request because the child she would carry had a spiritual assignment attached. Some of you are asking for things not knowing your request carries weight in the realm of destiny. And until the timing matches the purpose, heaven won't release it. The truth is, we don't suffer from lack of opportunity. We suffer from limited vision. We see what's in front of us and call it everything. We see one option and call it the only door. But God sees what you can't. He sees the trap behind that contract. He sees the heartbreak behind that relationship. He sees the destruction behind that job you thought would define your life. And in His mercy, He shuts doors not to punish, but to preserve. His no is not rejection, it's redirection. You prayed for it, but God denied it. That's not a reason to doubt Him. It's a reason to trust Him even more. Because the God you serve is not sentimental. He is strategic. He doesn't move based on your tears. He moves based on His truth. And His truth says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, and my ways are not your ways. That means the very thing you call delay might be His way of making room for something you've never imagined. You're asking for what looks like provision, but He's preparing a door of promotion. You're begging for what feels familiar, but He's making space for what is supernatural. Consider Joseph, sold by his own brothers, betrayed, falsely accused, thrown into prison. Everything about his story looked like rejection, but every step backward was a setup for elevation. Because while people saw a slave, God saw a ruler. While people saw a prisoner, God saw a prime minister. And had Joseph received what he wanted, had he stayed in the comfort of his father's house, he would have missed the palace. Some of you are lamenting the pit, not realizing that the pit is part of the path. The door you're crying over is not the door God promised. It's the one he had to close to get you to Egypt. We pray with passion, but we must learn to wait with patience. Because God doesn't just want to answer your prayer. He wants to align you with your purpose. And sometimes that means removing you from the environment you thought you'd flourish in. Abraham had to leave his father's house. Moses had to flee Egypt. David had to escape Saul. Jesus had to go into the wilderness. Every great move of God begins with a disruption of human comfort. If you are feeling discomfort right now, don't rebuke it. Don't run from it. Lean into it. God could be using that very pressure to pry you away from the wrong door. You've been knocking and nothing is opening. But God never told you to force a door open. He told you to follow his voice. He didn't say your blessing was behind any door. He said it was behind the one he opens. Revelation 3:8 says, "See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut." That means when God opens a door, it doesn't need your strength to keep it open. It doesn't need your manipulation. It doesn't require your connections. All it needs is your obedience. This is where most people miss it. They confuse activity with productivity. They think that because they're busy pushing on doors, they're being faithful. But faith is not proven in the push, it's proven in the pause. Can you stop pushing long enough to listen? Can you stop knocking long enough to discern whether this is even the right hallway? Because if you're in the wrong hallway, every door will lead to frustration, no matter how hard you pray. Sometimes the key is not to pray harder, it's to pivot. Before heaven's mount has been destined with hell, let's go inside now. There is a holy tension between what you want and what heaven has assigned. And until you surrender your will, you'll always pray for things that satisfy your comfort but not your calling. That's why some doors are blocked, because they were born of your ambition, not God's intention. And he loves you too much to let you settle for what's beneath your inheritance. You were made for more. Your destiny carries weight. And the door he's preparing is not just for access, it's for authority. When Elijah ran from Jezebel, he hid in a cave. He was done. He thought it was over. But God came, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in a whisper. And that whisper carried instruction, carried direction, carried power. Sometimes the greatest doors are announced in the quiet. That's why you can't miss your moment chasing noise. The flashy door is not always the faithful one. The loud door is not always the lasting one. And yes, the story is the defining one. God is still speaking in the stillness. And if you can silence the chaos, you'll hear him clearly. You think it's over, but it's not. You think you missed it, but you didn't. What looks like a detour is actually divine positioning. You haven't lost time, you've gained clarity. You haven't wasted your tears. They've watered the soil for your next breakthrough. The door you're waiting for is not just coming, it's being built. Piece by piece, layer by layer. And when it opens, you'll see why every other one had to close. Because this one won't just change your life, it will elevate your identity. So now you see, God was never ignoring you. He was preparing something better. What seemed like delay was divine alignment. What felt like rejection was holy protection. The door you were praying for was never the final destination. It was just a test of your trust. And the better door, it's coming. One that doesn't just answer your prayer, but reveals your purpose. When it opens, you won't have to force it, fake it, or fear it. You'll know it was God. Wait well, worship while you wait. Because the door that's coming will make every closed one worth it.